I'm talking today with Leo Pareja, who's currently the CEO of one of the largest real estate companies on the planet, eXp Realty.
The largest.
Are you guys officially the largest now?
Yeah.
Really? Congratulations, Leo. That is fantastic.
Single brokerage, single platform, largest brokerage on the planet.
That is fantastic. Good for you. Hard earned and well deserved, I got to tell you.
There are several brands that are larger, but one company, not franchise, independently owned and operated, we're the single largest.
I did not know that. That is incredible. Well, Leo, I'm just stoked to have you on, man. So let's just dive right into it. It's funny because as we got started doing this, I thought, I got to catch up. I got to go back there and I got to see what's Leo been up to since you and I were doing a lot together. And I want to back up. I'm just go back into your history really quick before we dive into eXp and the market and what's going on in the industry. And there's so much I want to unpack with you. So we're gonna have to go fairly rapid fire. But I want to start with, tell us your backstory. I mean, I know you started real estate at 19. I'm just going to kind of give you some high points, and then I'd like you to fill in the details here. Started selling real estate, correct me if I'm wrong, at 19 years old. Number one agent at Keller Williams Real Estate by 28 years old. 4,000 homes sold, over 750 million in volume over 15 years. Then you started a Washington Capital Partners, which is a private lending company. And then you founded Remine, which had 80% market share and completely changed the industry from a technology standpoint. Past president of NAREP, I believe, as well. And now current CEO for the largest real estate company in the world. So talk to us, tell us, fill in some of these gaps. I want to know how you went from one to the other, because man, that's a journey, and you're not that old. You're a young guy.
Well, it's funny to hear your own highlight reel, because you know that there's a whole lot of downs in there, right? Those are just kind of like the highlights from LinkedIn or your resume. And I always want to make sure that people understand that, right? It's like, I don't care who you are. I saw a quote once during a keynote that I thought was pretty impactful that said, success is messy, right? People doing it at the highest level. You were just asking me, is text still the best way to get a hold of me? And I said, hey, it could be in bunches when I respond when the next time I'm on a plane. And so I think life has been an exercise in radical prioritization, and that's probably the common thread throughout my entire career. So I actually went to school to do web design and graphic design. I wanted to be in software, which ironically 20 years later, I did end up in software, but I chose the year 2000 to do that in, which could not have been the worst year to do. I could have graduated in 2000. That would have actually been worse. But I picked the year 2000 to become a graphic designer and a web designer. And by the middle of my freshman year, my hopes and dreams of being recruited out of college, making $150,000 a year, which by the way is like 300 grand now, 350, had started to evaporate. So I went to a college fair my freshman year of college that said, if you just get a 4-year degree, companies like WorldCom and AOL were offering me great packages, but 3 years later, before I even graduated college, they no longer existed in their current form. But I read a book because a parent's friend told me to during one of the breaks. And that book happened to be Rich Dad Poor by Robert Kiyosaki. It was the first time I ever heard of leverage in its forms, right? People, time, and money. I got obsessed, and I got obsessed with real estate. I found a local realtor, a real estate investor meetup group. And I went and I was prepared to work for free. I offered a guy who was running it if I could work for free. And he actually turned me down and said, I have zero interest in teaching a snot-nosed kid stuff. But he said, but if you're serious, call this guy out in Colorado and he can teach you everything you want. And I did. And the guy said, yeah, I can teach you everything you want to know, but it's going to cost you $10,000. And I was a sophomore in college. And unbeknownst to my parents or my friends, I sold my car and wired a stranger all my money. And we entered into a very intense mentoring relationship. And it was all about accountability. And I started reading a lot about psychology, the psychology of a sale. People need to be ready, willing, and able, right? Getting to a no is better than even pushing for a yes. Getting off the phone in 30 seconds and 60 seconds and 90 seconds because you know your LP mamas and all the other scripts you and I got really good at over the years. And as I was going through that process, part of the deal was I had to become a realtor. I didn't want to. It was never on my life plan. But he said, if you want to be a successful real estate investor, you need access to the MLS. So I get my license. The guy who turned me down had gotten the franchise for Keller Williams. So he was very interested in sponsoring me once I passed my test. And as I was in the office one day looking for rentals, because me and my landlord disagree on, reasonable volume on a Tuesday night, he said, why don't you buy a house? I said, I'm a child. I can't do that. And he said, talk to the loan officer down the hall. Turns out I had great credit because I paid off a car. And I qualified for an FHA loan. I convinced my parents to co-sign me and lend me the down payment for 8 hours. Well, then I went to settlement, got my commission, used that to pay my down payment on a 3% FHA loan. Rented out 3 rooms for $500 a piece and zero-based my mortgage. And armed with my one little script and my only transaction, I called every fraternity brother and sorority girl that would take my call and said, I need to talk to your parents about housing for next year. And my script was, for what you pay for 1 year of room and board, let me show you how you pay for your kids' tuition. And so that was my hook. It got me the appointment. And my pitch was do it FHA, 3% down, non-occupant co-borrower. And I sold them all homes between 2002 and 2004. So I got to sell them all before the market turned as well, when they all graduated. And, most of them, it was probably the best thing that ever happened to them, because it not only paid for room and board, it covered all their tuition and probably the down payment on their next home. And so that, by the time I graduated college, my senior year of college, I did $306,000 of GCI as a full-time student. And I thought I was very special, and I didn't realize that I was a creature of a very unusual market. But life has a way of humbling you. And I learned in 2007, I was not that special and I was not that good. And I had bought like 14 rental properties with way too much leverage. And I learned how to do short sales on myself. I gave it all back to the bank after crying a lot. And once the boogers were dry and I'd made the decision I was going to stay in real estate, I actually called every top agent at Keller Williams that year and asked if I could come visit them. Because if I was going to go out in a blaze of glory, I wanted to learn some stuff on the way out. And it turned out that they were all super open and giving. And like the 6 I was able to get a hold of said, come visit me. And I also realized that they weren't any smarter than me and that they were really good at a couple things. And within, I think, 4 years of that moment, 3 years of that moment, I became the number one agent in the world for Keller. And I built a business doing REO. That's when I met you on the road. And we knocked on the biggest doors before it was a thing and said, hey, do you guys have any ugly houses you want us to sell for you? And there went the journey. So whether it was that, growing a lending business, growing a tech business, in retrospect, it all looks like this perfect process, but it's almost more of a, you scratch an itch, it works for you. It might solve the problem for others. Is it scalable? Is it not scalable? Is it long-term, or is it a market of the moment? And not that one is good or bad. It's just you need to make sure you don't put all your eggs in your basket. You and I both learned that with REO. So you got to be able to pivot, make sure that any one single source of business doesn't control your business, right? You don't become beholden to any one lead source. So that's the high notes of it. I've lost a bunch of money. I've thankfully made more than I've lost, and I've learned some lessons along the way.
Dude, what a great journey, though. As I'm listening to you talk about the journey, first of all, I love the phrase radical prioritization. And I think that's a phrase that I think a lot of people need to kind of really, truly embrace, because at the end of the day, we all have the same number of hours in the day, and we get to choose what we do with those hours. And if you're going to exercise radical prioritization, guess what? You're going to have a lot better life than somebody who just kind of walks into it and does what comes, next or first, or just happens to get in their way. I also love that you did a lot of house hacking. I think, that you're a big proponent of house hacking. That's how you got your start in real estate ownership. And I love that you were able to zero base that throughout college. That's awesome. And I love the vulnerability. And this is something that I think not a lot of people, I don't know, maybe they do. I don't know a lot of the people that are watching, maybe that know you or maybe that don't, but for those of us that know you well, I think it's important to note that you're an incredibly transparent guy. And I think that that's a really common trait I see in really high producers, right? Regardless of what type of role they're in. And I think it's that said, I think it's incredibly special when you see it in the CEO of a publicly traded company, because I think there's a lack of vulnerability and transparency in CEOs of publicly traded companies. So I think it's really a breath of fresh air that you're as transparent and as vulnerable as you are. And I love that you brought up that, hey man, like 2007, I went through some stuff, man. Like it was tough. You know, I didn't know what I didn't know, and I had to short sell some of my own homes in order to figure stuff out. And good news is, I didn't die. Like I figured it out. I learned from it. I found some new ways to do things, and I moved on. And I think what a powerful message, because I think there's people that are probably going through some stuff right now that are probably thinking that whatever it is they're going through is the end of the world or is absolutely catastrophic, and it's going to mean that they can't get where they would like to get in their life. And so I appreciate you being transparent about that, because obviously, I mean, if you can do it, others can do it, right?
Club Wealth is the only coaching company on the planet that will literally guarantee that you will double your income or make at least an extra $100,000 your first year coaching with us, or we will give you 100% of your investment back. Click the link below, sign up for the appropriate tier level, and let's get you a strategy session today. And I promise you, I 100% guarantee you, promise you that you will walk away with a heart full of gratitude for the time that we took for you, because you got so much value out of that call. Schedule your strategy session today. I promise you'll be glad you did.